Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lunch Tech in Chat. I've got my friend Will here. Will, you remember that every time you access Wikipedia, it asks you to donate $1, and if everyone donates $1, they're gonna have $100 million or whatever. Now, there's a competition for Wikipedia that is 100% free. Do you want to talk about that today?
Yeah, let's do it. I want to see different competitive models actually of Wikipedia, but the one that is actually coming up and that you've been talking about is quite interesting. So let's see how does it work?
Yeah, so Elon Musk has released a Wikipedia competitor called Grokpedia. So it's grokpedia.com. Essentially, the way that works is you as a user, you search for a topic, and then Grokpedia will check if that topic already exists. If it doesn't, it will do a bunch of searches on the web and create or generate that page. And the thing is, everything is generated by AI.
So it
Everything is, yeah, go for it.
the page on the fly. So it generates the page on the fly.
It generates the page on the fly. So it creates content, it curates the content, effect check the content, and keep the content up to date after the page has been created. So it's a bunch of agents that keeps the Wikipedia or the Grokpedia alive.
Wow. Okay, that is interesting. So maybe it's worth kind of like comparing a little bit how does this model actually operate relative to the traditional Wikipedia model, right? Because the traditional Wikipedia model was at the very beginning of, I guess, of the internet in a way, and has survived the last 20 plus years by asking a whole bunch of volunteers actually contribute actually content to it, and how can we see actually kind of like the evolution of those two models from, I guess, from a technological and commercial point of view? Do you have like any ideas on that? How that's
Yeah, so my understanding of Wikipedia currently is that anyone can go and edit or submit, but then it goes into a few reviews before it gets published. So it's like a community of publishing, fact checking, and deployment of the knowledge in the Wikipedia site. And the difference on Grokpedia is it sort of essentially does the same, but with agents. So you as a user, you after a content, so you searching that content, and then the agents will do sort of the human work of doing the search, doing the fact checking, doing the updates, and then just keeping that information up to date with what's going on in the world, which is it's quite a cool model because it automates the human process into a fully automated process, which will keep data more up to date, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know if Grok will have bias on the data that is creating, which is another topic.
Yeah.
But my question is like, if you have this whole sort of model or environment when it's fully automated on creating knowledge, who pays for that in the long term? Because of course there's a cost. There's a cost on LLM usage, the tokens, the publishing, the storage, the maintenance of the website. How does that get maintained? Like Wikipedia asks for money, so donations. Grokpedia at the moment has just gone live, so maybe they don't have a funding model yet. But that's my question. Like, even if it takes over Wikipedia just because of the way it's sort of fully automated, so data in time will be more accurate, how does that get funded and maintained long term? I think that's the biggest question here, right?
I think probably I would say it might be one of those initiatives, and I would compare that almost to kind of like the ancient times, like the Renaissance times, when you have like those artists, and it's essentially kind of like a mecene, like someone that actually sponsors kind of like the activity. In this case here, XAI or Elon Musk himself personally, because he wants to see the competitor like with a fully automated kind of like workflow operating behind the scenes. This, of course, it's fine to do, I think, for a period of time, but eventually it might actually create kind of like, I guess, some sort of like commercial model, which I suppose at this point we don't know. The traditional commercial model, and we've talked about this hundreds of times, I think, during this podcast, is the advertising model, right? I don't think that necessarily Silicon Valley has found yet another model for commercializing free products, the commercial model of advertising. That's probably kind of like, I guess, the highest probability. But I'd like to throw a spin. Elon Musk has also been quite connected with the Web3 community over the years. That could still happen that he might try to create some sort of like economic model that involves, crypto, even like through agents itself, like crypto staking, like all the agents start kind of like staking some of their information and creating kind of like a market for the data that they are generating, and that starts to be traded as if it was value. I mean, I'm obviously over speculating here, but some of his activities sometimes actually go into that space, right? And I can talk about, we can go a little bit like during our conversation in terms of like some of these models that I've seen trying to be bootstrapped in the past. And I mean, they had some level of success, but they weren't brought to the full fruition of the model, but maybe something that is a little bit more, I guess, has a little bit more PR value to it, which is things that actually are associated with Elon Musk. They might crack that code, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just while you were talking, I was also wondering if it's anything to do about training LLM models. Like people are researching for different types of knowledge, and then you have the agents sort of putting that knowledge together. So it's sort of human driven in the sense of what knowledge is important, AI driven in the sense of, creating, curating, fact checking the data, and that data being used on the background to train LLM models. It might be one of the things that he's considering, like make the knowledge available, make people start consuming and even like feedbacking on the data, like is that good data or bad data, and the
Yeah.
data being ingested in the back into Grok to be trained as the next versions of the LLM. Like it
Hmm.
sounds quite possible.
Yeah, it could be a business model, right? Like, so for example, if instead of operating in the similar way, like from operational perspective, like the way that Wikipedia actually works, is that you have human content creators that are effectively, they are doing voluntary work. They are creating pages, they are updating pages, they are doing different things. But then at the back of it, and that's why Wikipedia requests is always doing these campaigns for fundraising. At the back of it, the people that do curation of the content, filtering, I guess, harmful content, etc., filter for for things like fact checking of the content that is actually coming into Wikipedia and actually being, I guess, published. Maybe if it's possible that it might be trying to do in reverse engineering rather than actually having a curator group. And this has been a lot in the history, by the way, of this sort of like platforms for content. It's like instead of the editors being the ones that actually create the content, is actually the humans that are requesting the data or the pages to be generated, that actually they are the curators of that content. This is not the first time that people are trying to do that, by the way, but it's the first time that that here the content creator is the AI, and the curator is the requester for the content.
Well, the curator right now is not the requester. The curator right now is the actual AI. It's all
Is the
AI
AI, yeah.
driven. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah.
maybe potentially, like to your point, kind of like if you want to, if we're potentially getting into some sort of like plateau where um where now AI models are mostly being fed with synthetic data that was generated previously by AI models, right? And that we and that now we actually need humans in the loop is starting to improve even the quality of the synthetic data. This could actually be a business model where the humans come in and intervene. For example, like if you, I don't know, if you're a microbiologist and you're writing a page about, I don't know, some enzyme that you're actually deep into that research and you're actually correcting some of the methods and etc. that is being described by the LLM model, that in itself has, I guess, accuracy value at the very edge of what is it that the AI is generating, or the
Mm.
agent, if you are the one that is creating that data. And potentially there is an economic model here on either side, or on actually paying that person for doing that curation rather than a centralized kind of like editorial board that is doing that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it wasn't our topic for today, but it's a big hype that has been going on, so I'll touch on that anyway. So OpenAI has finished restructuring itself, and now it's finalized that Microsoft will remain being the biggest investor um, or a shareholder of OpenAI, the non-for-profit part of OpenAI, which means that the stock of Microsoft has gone up. They've started releasing a bunch of products because there was a big risk of Microsoft losing the IP from OpenAI and access to, all the models and all the things that are created by OpenAI, but that's all in the past. So they will have keep having access to everything that OpenAI creates, to the models, OpenAI deploying on Azure services, everything as it was. So they just started like crazy, releasing a lot of new
Mm.
products. And we talked about, that model of so many companies involved in this big AI bubble circling the money
Yeah,
between themselves.
the
And
money
I feel
glitch.
like, yeah, Microsoft found a really sweet spot to be at the moment. Like, uh, you know, uh, they had this whole big fear of, are we going to remain under not under, but with OpenAI IP? Because, Google and Amazon, they've started creating their own stuff. Like Google, they have the full stack. They've got the LLMs, they've got the technology, they've got everything. And Microsoft
They've
has
got
really been focused
compute.
on
Yeah,
using, the wrappers of the products and replicating a lot of the OpenAI stuff inside the enterprise environment. And yeah, now that's gonna carry on. So I feel like Microsoft has won the lotto.
yeah. So I guess maybe let's recap a little bit how this all kind of like started and where are we in that journey, right? So you've known that much better than I have and have followed it. That the thing that actually I remember, and that's probably like the
Go for it.
point, is that I guess was it like 2022, end of 2022, and Microsoft had actually announced that they were actually acquiring a 49% stake on OpenAI or something like that, wasn't it? And that was the kind of like I guess the starting point of this relationship towards that, like GPT-3 era. And then from there on, things have kind of evolved back and forth. What has happened in the middle?
Yeah, so that in the agreement with Microsoft, they had something like when OpenAI achieves AGI, the agreement sort of bounces and is not valid anymore. And there was a big discussion of OpenAI of what does AGI actually means, and OpenAI always saying that they had achieved AGI because they sort of wanted to break that partnership with Microsoft. So in the
Right.
story of OpenAI, they started as as a non-profit company. And because they saw how profit this thing was, Microsoft jumping on the bandwagon, making loads of money, sharing data centers and etc. All the things that you've seen from Elon Musk trying, like to um, prosecute Alt Salmon just because of the
Sam
whole,
Altman, yeah.
yeah, or the whole profit and non-profit thing. So they Sam Altman has been on a big journey of, okay, we need to be a for-profit company. How do we make that happen? But they couldn't because of the way that the company was set up. So
Yep.
now what they've done is they came into a way that everything is created as uh, a for-profit, and then the non-profit is owns part of the for-profit, and then all the other sort of stakeholders own part of that the for-profit. So it's a bit of a yeah.
There's an infrastructure there. I'm trying to remind myself of the name of it. There was a public public benefits business, or it is something that has to deal with the purpose of existence of the business. I'm actually the specific wording of it. I remember that we talked about it when it was actually when those changes were happening. I think it's I don't know if it's PBI, PBC, public benefit company or something like that. And it was effectively what it would allow OpenAI as it goes towards AGI to have while having the for-profit commercial kind of arm that does its thing and innovates and raises capital, etc. There is this public benefit business company that effectively creates like an exit strategy effectively for a kind of like non-profit like business to operate.
Yeah, so just so I don't talk shit, I was just googling in parallel here. So the way that this looks like now is the non-profit remains in control of the for-profit, and it has a direct path to major resources before AGI arrives. So the non-profit now is called OpenAI Foundation, holds equity in the for-profit valued at approximately $130 billion. So that's sort of how the new structuring looks. I saw a graph the other day talking about like how much each of the stakeholders own of OpenAI. Let me see if I can find something again.
Yeah, so I found the example that I was mentioning. So it's called a public benefit corporation. That is sometimes called a benefit corporation. It's a legal form of business that blends for-profit structure with a formal commitment to one or more public, social, and environmental benefits. So that
Right.
means that the company has shareholders. That is unlike a charity, is for profit, so it can generate returns, but also are legally required to consider broader stakeholder interests. So this, for example, like the ideas, the concepts of community, environment, its customers, I guess humanity, you could even extend to that level, beyond just maximizing that shareholder profit. So it's a kind of like, it's a blend. It's not exactly kind of like a shared, like in the English world, we have like things like charitable trusts,
Mm-hmm.
or like religious or education associations, or even like sports clubs that actually are run as charitable trusts because they are not set up to make profit for their shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
It has elements of that kind of like charitable trust with elements of a commercial entity running the business. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, it's almost like a hedge in a way. Like if we achieve AGI and these things disrupts the whole of humanity, then hey, the public benefit corporation principles take over from the commercial arm of it, I guess.
So look at this. So These are the current sort of shareholders of OpenAI, how it stands now. So 1% of OpenAI, which is around 5 billion. So the whole valuation of OpenAI is $500 billion. Okay. So 1%, which is 5 billions, is the first OpenAI investors. And then you have 2%, which is the IO shareholders from the beginning. And then you have 20 billion that are the investors in the 2024 fundraise from last year. And then you have 65 billion that are the investors on the fundraising from 2025. And there's a lot of companies and people here. And then you've got the major stakeholders. So I'll talk about those, which are the biggest shareholders.
Yeah.
So the OpenAI employees, they own 25% of OpenAI, which is around 125 billion.
It's quite a high number actually for a
Yeah,
company.
that's why everyone that works for OpenAI is making tons of money, right? And then you've got the OpenAI's non-profit, which is the initial entity, and that owns 27% of the company, which is around $135 billion.
So
And
that's
then we've
that
got,
PVC corporation that I was talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and then we have Microsoft. Just for you to have an idea, when Microsoft invested in OpenAI, they invested a total of $13 billion in OpenAI. Their share in OpenAI now is they are the biggest shareholders. They own 28% of the company, and their share is equivalent of $140 billion now. So,
And they have never offloaded some of those shares. Remember, like when we started, this part of the conversation was like that 48%. So the 49%, the fact that they have reduced that, I
well, it
guess.
hasn't reduced because it moved, because I think they were shareholders in the non-profit because the other entity didn't exist. So
Okay.
now it created an entity on top of an existing entity. This is my understanding, but
Yeah,
maybe someone
unless
that understands
unless it
better
was
can put
part
on the
of,
comments
they
here.
had some shared dilution as part of the recent capital raise,
Yeah, I
which
don't know,
could
but
have also
maybe
moved things
someone that
around.
understands better can put in the comments here. But I
Yeah.
think my main question is, I think it feels like Microsoft has win the lotto, right? Like they are where they needed to be in the AI space. They're not losing the biggest sort of, well, let's say they moving from having a partnership to OpenAI for OpenAI to being sort of an asset of Microsoft now. So they don't have to worry about it. I think that's the point, right?
Yeah, and how does that actually does that play with those other players in actually that money glitch? What position does actually that leave Microsoft from a, I guess, a commercial standpoint?
This is a good question. I think because that's all about money transitioning from deals and partnerships more than profits in the company. So I think that nothing will impact that money glitch. Like Microsoft was already part of the, I was gonna say triangle, but there's too many people to be triangle, but Microsoft was already part of that. So nothing's gonna change on that, I think.
Of the polygon.
The polygon, the hexagon, or how many companies are involved on that?
Yeah. Awesome, Andre. I think we'll stop there for today. So so we're gonna do a bit of like reverse then today. So what sentence or word should people actually put in the comments if they've listened this far?
Um, Grokpedia. That's the word of the day.
I'll give it a go and um see how it works, kind of like in a little bit like detail, and then actually maybe we can have a even deeper conversation on it. We haven't touched on some I guess some other competitive models from last time.
I just for us to close up, I just want to say that code generating models are evolving so quickly. There's a new model that came out um, from Jesus Christ, from
Anthropic.
not Anthropic, Cursor AI, a new model that came out of Cursor AI. There's a new model from Anthropic, of course, that got released a couple of weeks ago. And man, I've just been using agents like crazy to do development. Uh, so you are in one of my screens, my other screen here, I've got like 5 terminals open doing development for me, agents doing the requirements and all the crap. Man, this is becoming crazy. Like
How how long
I'm
how
loving to
long
be alive right now.
how long since the last time that you actually wrote a line of code now?
uh, I don't know.
So are you kind of like mostly doing I guess the specification of it and
It's
then
and it's funny because sometimes I know how to fix the code, but I want AI to do it. So I keep saying like, this thing here is not right. You need to fix, but I don't give it a day answer because I want to see AI doing it. So
yeah.
I'm a bit stubborn. I want to see the actual vibe coding doing the
So
work for me.
so you actually want to see the graduates actually suffering to get to the that you're
Exactly.
expecting.
And then I keep creating agents that know more of the knowledge, and then I sort of sum the agents to do the work. So it's pretty cool. I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying that.
It is really cool, actually. It's I think it's quite. I think it's much more enjoy. So there's a part of me that thinks I like it's much more enjoyable creating product than it used to be.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
there's less of that kind of like friction, or it's taking it's
I
taking
had a
so
cl-
long.
I had a
It's taking
client this
the
morning,
time.
Will. I had a client this morning. So I spoke with the client. I built a application for them, and then they sent me an email last night and said, "Hey, look, for our meeting tomorrow, here's some of the stuff that I want to discuss with you, like to put on the solution, and then we can discuss about how long it takes and some timeline and etc." So the meeting with them was at 9:30. I had a few meetings in the morning. I gave to my agents all the documentation that the client gave me. I gave a bunch of prompts. I was in my meetings while the agents were working. I was like, oh shit, are they gonna get done in time?
Yeah, exactly.
When the client called me, I had a working application updated with everything that the client gave me. They were
Wow.
so amazed. They were like, wow, how did you do this? That was so cool, man.
They think they must be thinking, wow, he was so fast to respect, and I was like, it was coding while I was actually in the middle of my meetings.
That's so cool. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, this is really cool, actually, to be able actually to do that kind of stuff, because otherwise, there is a part of me, of course, that actually sometimes thinks, well, are we outsourcing? I guess, are we outsourcing a little bit too much of our brains to this thing? Yeah.
Of course we are.
But yeah, but is that making us, I guess, dumber
Dumber.
or not?
Yeah,
I think so.
is.
You do think so?
Computers did, telephones did, like mobile phones, and now AI is doing it as well. We're gonna become dumber and dumber. The future of humanity, it's being creative. Like you're gonna have all AI and technology doing crap for you. You will have to learn to be creative and then get the AI to do whatever you thought, whatever idea you had, get AI to do it for you. That's the
Yeah,
future of
but
humanity.
that forces a little bit the thinking, I guess. I mean, some of the
It's a
creative.
different type of thinking. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's kind of the same thing that we used to have, which is kind of like I guess, like the hard mathematical thinking that developers had to do, or logic thinking that they had to do previously, which
I've always been really bad with
made
maths.
their kind of like brains kind of like go haywire by trying to solve those problems.
Yeah.
But the creation is still going to be there. It's more like I don't know if our brains are all going to start functioning a little bit almost like the brains of product people. right?
Maybe,
Which
maybe.
the product people didn't necessarily have to solve some of that logic that the developers had to solve, or, that it was more like, I guess, math and computer kind of like coding, structuring together. But anyways, interesting. Maybe a topic for another
Another time. Next
yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
Let's keep
Awesome.
promising and not delivering.
Exactly. We are really good at that.
All right. Thanks
Awesome.
very much, Will, and I'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, man.